Ms. Amanda Strohan, Deputy High Commissioner of Canada to India, Mr. Hitendra Dave, General Manager and CEO, HSBC Bank, Mr. John Tory, Board of Directors, Canada-India Business Council, Mr. Victor Thomas, President and CEO, Canada-India Business Council, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Truly delighted to join this 11th edition of the Canada-India Business Forum. I believe this forum is an interactive platform for Indian and Canadian businesses to build strategic partnerships. India and Canada have historical ties based on shared values of democracy, a multicultural, multi-ethnic set of people, and our two societies, our people-to-people ties, truly define this relationship. Canada is one of the first countries with which India developed diplomatic relationship sometime in 1947. Along with 75 years of independence, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav that we are celebrating this year, we will also be celebrating 75 years of this long-standing partnership with Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, our people-to-people relations and the cultural exchange has deepened our bonds over the years. Canada is home to a vibrant Punjabi community who are actively participating in nation building. Diwali has been celebrated on the Parliament Hill for the last 18 years. The mayor of Ottawa has announced 2nd October as Gandhi Day. During the COVID-19, India became the pharmacy of the world, providing medicines, vaccines, and other pharma products to over 150 countries all over the world. We have assured full commitment in supporting Canada's vaccination efforts and will continue to make sure that all the countries in the world will receive vaccines. Our plan is to produce 5 billion doses of vaccine next year so that India can play an important role in saving the world. The Prime Minister, His Excellency Mr. Trudeau, had said, and I quote, "If the world managed to conquer COVID, it would be significantly because of India's tremendous pharmaceutical capacity and Prime Minister Modi's leadership in sharing this capacity with the world." India itself, with a large population, is implementing one of the largest vaccination drives. I'm sure in the months and years to come, we will continue to support the pharma needs of many, many countries, including Canada, so that we can secure all humanity. I'm very delighted that Canada has also announced that it shall recognize the Bharat Biotech indigenously developed and produced Covaxin from 30th of November. Our business relations too have grown in strength over the period of time and developed into a strategic partnership based on the principles of trust. Canada is home to a large Indian diaspora with probably over 1.5 million persons of Indian origin living in Canada. Many Canadian companies have chosen India as their preferred business destination. I am told over 400 companies, Canadian companies, have a presence in India, some of which are the Sun Life Financial, McCain, Bombardier, which used to work for the railways, and many others. McCain French fries are highly popular among the youth of India. I am delighted that the Canadian pension funds have pledged over $55 billion in investments between 2014 and 2020, out of which over $32 billion have already been realized. Key Canadian companies from India with Indian origin are TCS, Aditya Birla Group, SR Group, Wipro, Paytm, Infosys, which are contributing to the Canadian economy and serving the people and businesses in Canada. During my visit to Sorrento, Her Excellency Miss Mary NG and I discussed the possibility of concluding the India-Canada Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement in two stages: an initial interim agreement covering goods and services, deeper economic partnership in several sectors, and a much larger and comprehensive complete agreement at the second stage a little later. This way, we can harvest the low hanging fruits and areas of mutual interest and provide opportunities to our businesses on both sides, Canada and India, and enable greater degree of trade in goods and services. Few rounds of discussions were held before the elections. We now hope to take it forward on a fast track basis. The bilateral trade in goods and services with Canada currently stands at about $10 billion. Key exports from India include pharmaceutical products, iron and steel, chemicals, gem and jewelry, nuclear reactors and boilers. Key exports from Canada to India include minerals, vegetables, fertilizers, paper and pulp, ores. But certainly, I believe there's tremendous potential to grow this business, to grow the mutual trade to much higher levels. I believe India's competitive and comparative advantage in areas like textiles, footwear, areas in which we have traditional strength, and areas where we are building modern technologies like the services sector, our fintech, our agri-tech, our edutech, are all showing tremendous potential in our business with Canada. India is shaping up for a growth decade. The world looks at India today as a trusted partner. Over the COVID-19 pandemic period, India ensured rejigging all its processes literally overnight, providing broadband facility at people's homes, moving equipment, giving all the requisite permissions online on a real-time basis, so that we did not let down any of our international service commitments for a moment also, and thereby earning the goodwill of businesses around the world. We are already pursuing free trade agreements with several other countries like the UAE, Australia, the EU, very soon starting with the UK and the GCC countries, recently started already with Israel, and I do hope we can add Canada to this list of like-minded democratic countries with which we would like to expand our trade. We have gained the trust of investors around the world. Moody's recently gave us a upgrade. We have seen increased foreign direct investment and foreign portfolio investment coming into India. Recently launched the production-linked incentive scheme to incentivize investment in manufacturing in India. We have a single window system along with a land bank fully GIS mapped to help businesses locate their businesses in areas of their choice and get all their approvals or at least many of their approvals, through the single window, which we hope to expand in the years to come. India has announced a $1.4 trillion national infrastructure pipeline and nearly $100 billion monetization program, which we hope Canadian investors will be able to participate in. We are now a destination to look out for, and I'm sure that Canadian companies will take interest in the growing Indian market and the growth story of India. I look forward to joining the executive roundtable discussion next month with the Canada-India Business Council. I see a tremendous potential for the India-Canada collaboration if we focus on a few areas: agri and food processing, digital innovation, biosciences, seed technologies, supply chain and logistics, education, with student and faculty exchange programs, tie-ups between universities, digital education, virtual classrooms, skill development, possibly renewable energy, which is being expanded in India in a big way. There are so many opportunities for businesses between both countries. And I invite all of you to participate in this very, very important engagement between Canada and India. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is often said, great things are done by a series of small things brought together. The India-Canada relationship is poised to achieve greater heights, and our repeated engagements show true intention to materialize the same and capitalize on every possible opportunity. Today, India and Canada want to work towards ensuring a better and brighter future for the people of Canada, for the people of India. My best wishes to all of you, and my best wishes to the Canada-India Mumbai Business Forum. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Namaste.
Welcome to those here in India, good evening, and to those in Canada and around, good morning. It is so nice to be in an event with people once again. My name is Victor Thomas, and I'm the President and CEO of the Canada-India Business Council, and we are so honored to have you here today to host our 11th Canada-India Mumbai Business Forum. Thank you. I heard as I've been talking to people are out of rhythm in terms of being at a physical event. So we want to make sure that those that are virtual know that you're actually here. So let's just make sure that you guys are awake and alive and everyone's well. So I'll just check in. How's everybody doing tonight? See, I don't think you understand how far Canada actually is and how loud you have to be to make it through to Canada. So let's try this again. How's everybody doing tonight? So now, those of you in Canada, you just heard what you're missing. After 2 long years, we are back in India, and we are so privileged to be here. We are physically situated tonight on top of the Taj Mahal Tower, overlooking the business capital of India. But just behind us is the Arabian Sea and the Gateway of India, which has historically been used as a symbolic ceremonial entrance to India. What a powerful symbol of us now coming back and being on the ground as we come together tonight here in Mumbai. This, of course, is a much smaller gathering than our 356 we had in November of 2019, but we are thrilled that you're here because you here are some of our most important members and stakeholders, and of course you watching back in Canada and around the world. We're so grateful that you're participating here today. I want to acknowledge a few people, of course, in the room. We have our Deputy High Commissioner of Canada to India, Mrs. Amanda Strohan. Again, we have a board member of the Canada-India Business Council, Mr. John Tory. We have our keynote guest, Mr. Hitendra. And we have the CEO of the Indo-Canadian Business Chamber, Mrs. Nadira Hamid. We, of course, could not do this without the great support of our financial partners. And I just want to say that, during this time when we haven't been in person, it's been that much more important that they've been able to support us. And of course, they're listed here, but let me just take a moment and thank you as a gold partner, Air Canada. Thank you to the Government of Canada, specifically Global Affairs. Thank you, HSBC. And thank you to the Government of Saskatchewan, which is also our Global Leadership Circle member and has a new office here. So Victor Lee, welcome, and so good to have you in person. And of course, we also have our silver partners, EDC and the Government of Ontario. It's wonderful to see so many in person. And for those of you who are here, again, we're here physically. And if I saw a few of you drinking, if you just go out these doors, the washrooms are to the left. Important note, these are all things that we just haven't been doing very much. The Indo-Pacific region is receiving more and more attention as of late. Just this week, during the Canadian throne speech, the Indo-Pacific region was mentioned. So Canada is going to be engaging in this area a lot more, and we believe, as the Canada-India Business Council, that this region is important, but of course India is extremely important for economic relationship. Pre-COVID, some Canada-India useful facts. The bilateral trade partnership has been seeing exponential growth over the last number of years. Two-way trade between India and Canada was at 10.5 billion. Two-way services now exceed 6.67 billion. Two-way direct foreign investment is now at 5 billion. Indian students coming to Canada now spend 7.5 billion in terms of economic impact into our country. And it also makes up over 31% of the total spend of international students in Canada. Canadian portfolio investment is now over, get this, 63 billion. And a lot of those are our members, and they're saying they can't wait to come here and do a lot more. 5 Canadian provinces now have Indian offices. I mentioned Saskatchewan, but Ontario, Alberta, British Columbia, and Quebec, all who are represented here tonight, as well as in 2022, the government of New Brunswick will be having an office here as well. Canadian Life Insurance Company and one of our Global Leadership Circle members, Sun Life, based here in Mumbai, with its joint venture partner Aditya Birla, helps safeguard over 2 million Indians with life insurance and serves 5 million wealth management clients. The Canada-India bilateral trade and agriculture sector is worth more than 1.5 billion annually and looks to grow. More than 10 million Canadians eat, and everyone in Canada would know this, McCain French fries every month. 10 million Indians eat McCain French fries every month. Paytm, our member of the year last year, currently has their largest number of R&D researchers based in Canada, folks focusing mainly on AI. CGI Group, Canada's largest IT consulting firm, currently employs over 14,000 people in Karnataka. There are over 650 agreements between Indian and Canadian post-secondary institutions on joint research, student mobility, and faculty exchanges in various disciplines. And of course, the people-to-people links, there are over 1.5 million Canadians of Indian origin, just like me, and the latest, and so when you take that in a per capita basis, that's the largest diaspora per capita in the world. I mentioned him earlier, but I just wanted to say we have the great privilege. There's only a couple of us that have had the journey over from Canada, and one of them is Mr. John Tory. John is the Director of Business Development with Air Canada. He has the passion for the airline industry. Previously, he was the President and CEO of Private Air Inc., and He's a recipient, or he's an alumnus of the University of Toronto, their MBA program. He has been an extremely amazing supporter of this council, and of course is also on our board. Please welcome with me, again, remember we're in person, I want to hear it. Please welcome with me Mr. John Tory.
Well, that didn't work. Thank you, Victor. Please remind me that wherever I go, to make sure that you go ahead of me and introduce me anywhere I am. That was wonderful. I've never seen someone amp up. Normally they cheer like that when I'm leaving. And thank you to everybody who's here. It's wonderful to be here in person. This is incredible. Victor, you mentioned the distance that we traveled, but it was so incredibly worth it to be here. And for everybody who is joining us remotely, I say good morning and thank you for being here. And it is my great pleasure on behalf of Air Canada and as a board member, something I'm extremely proud of, to be part of introducing the Mumbai Business Forum. I have a few comments to make, but first of all, I want to just kick it off by saying it is great to be back in India. I feel like I'm at a place where I'm at home, where we realize in person, and it's a great way to connect with all the similarities between our two incredible nations and our nations who are leaders on so many fronts in the world and who share so many common values and cultural similarities. It's just a place where I feel at home, and I encourage everybody, and I'm now looking through the camera to all of you at your next opportunity. Come on over. We have lots of flights, and we look forward to seeing you. Air Canada is a proud supporter of the Canada-India Business Council. We look at the council as a partner. We look at the council as a way of connecting with our customers in order to drive success, both our customers' success and ours. We look to the council to help us with connections. When I say connections, I mean connecting to our business partners and to helping us to bring together exactly the types of minds like we see here in the room tonight, and like those of you who are joining us in streaming, to hear what we have to say and to be able to share our news and our developments with you. We look to India to capitalize on, to deliver, and to help to grow and expand on the incredible opportunity that over the decades India has shown itself to be for Canada. And we appreciate very much how the Canada-India Business Council has allowed or has facilitated Air Canada's growth and our success and our ability to connect with customers, with industry, with agencies, and with everybody else in the travel industry and in our commercial ecosystem. So thank you for that. I'm going to take a few minutes to say that this is so much better than Zoom. And I didn't have to look down for a mute button. I didn't have to listen to that Teams music that I found myself oddly dancing to as I got about halfway through last year. And now it just reminds me that there's more coming. And we missed out on having those chats in the doorway at the end of a meeting and meeting up at the bar and finding out that somebody here likes the same drink as you. Reconnecting with somebody and getting to look them in the eye and just read their body language. It is time to travel. Flying over here, it was the best 15 hours that I've spent recently because I realized I was doing something that we have been missing and we are long to do, which is to get on an airplane and to be in front of people and to say hello. We recognize that our flights are full. We take that as a great sign of the demand that is coming, and we are looking forward to opportunities to serve the growing market in India. We also know, and we hear you loud and clear when people say, I don't yet know how to travel. And I will put in a plug for our website here, but at Air Canada, we do offer what's called the Travel Ready Hub. You can put in your citizenship or your passport status, your vaccination status, and the 2 countries you intend to travel between, and everything you need to know is up to date and there. So I encourage you, please, wherever you want to go next, but when it's time to come to India, go look there. That's how I found out what I had to do to come here on my trip, and it was really easy to do. Finally, for people who are here in India and when you want to come and travel, and I encourage you to come to travel to Canada, bring your investments, bring your businesses, and bring your cameras for some vacationing and connecting with relatives too. It's great news that as of next week, every vaccine that is approved here in India will be recognized for entry into Canada, and it'll just make things a lot easier. And I think that over the coming months, we're going to see improvement. We're going to see much more recognition on both sides of the ocean in terms of the ability and desire to travel, and things are just going to get easier and better, and we'll be back to the same old familiar. So, we're all going out and we're visiting our friends and we're relatives and we're reconnecting, but we certainly cannot ignore business traffic. And this is what we're here to talk about as part of the Canada-India Business Council. We are seeing a return to business travel, which is really encouraging. We're seeing more and more rooms like this. We're seeing more and more of these events like the one we're doing today that has a hybrid component where some people are traveling to be in person and some people are joining remotely. And I just want you to know at Air Canada, we are ready. And we are ready. When things open up and when companies are ready to travel, we are here for you. We're starting to see it. We're ready now. We're ready through 2022. You're going to see a lot of the things that you have come to expect from us and that we're really proud of, like our signature service, like our Aeroplan loyalty program, and like nonstop service to a growing number of countries around the world. Coming back to the Canada-India Business Council, I'll just say, I think we can all take a moment and appreciate the benefits and the support that we are able to turn to those who are beside us in these rooms and those who are joining us on our screens, and we are able to enjoy the benefit of them being in our community and of being as members of the council. And I want you to know that from our standpoint, this works both ways. We know we can turn to you, and we hope that Victor and the council and all the members, you know you can turn to us. We turn to the council when it's time, as I said, to connect with industry, corporations, and government, but more so to remind that business is a community as much as it is a shareholder initiative. And what we learned last year was that we all learned how to row in the same direction. And I think that all of us, between Canada and India, we built on a foundation of shared values. We are rowing stronger and faster than we were based on knowledge that we learned coming through the pandemic. And we are now emerging from this, and we are going to emerge stronger than ever, in large part thanks to the engagement, the advocacy, and the invaluable relationships that are formed, fostered, and strengthened by the Canada-India Business Council. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you tonight and to welcome the Mumbai Business Forum in person. I look forward to seeing all of you here next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. I told you he's enthusiastic about aviation and the travel industry. And thank you for giving him such a warm applause. We're going to try to keep that up. Next, we of course have our High Commission out of Delhi and our consuls throughout India. And I just want to say thank you to our staff at Global Affairs for their great commitment and the great partnership on so many different things right throughout the year. And it's so nice to get to see many of you now in person. We have our Deputy High Commissioner of Canada to India with concurrent accreditation to Nepal and Bhutan, Ms. Amanda Strohan. Prior to her appointment as Deputy High Commissioner, she served as Minister Consular for Management at the High Commission of Canada to India. She has served around the world in Russia, Lebanon, Morocco, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And she told me one of her first postings was here to India in 2003. So she knows this country very well and is very passionate about it. One thing that I just found out tonight is that we both share the same hometown. Out of all the places in Canada, the capital city of Saskatchewan, Regina. Please welcome with me, again, rousing round of applause for those virtually, and of course for Amanda. Welcome with me, Deputy High Commissioner Amanda Strohan.
Thank you, Victor, and thank you all for the warm welcome. I would be remiss if I didn't start by also saying how great it is to be here in Mumbai with you tonight. It is certainly for me a privilege to be asked to say a few words from the perspective of the High Commission and our offices in India. But this is my first Canada-India Mumbai Business Forum, and it is just wonderful to be able to attend it in person. So I would like to say thank you to the organizers and everybody whose efforts went into making this happen. You can see the level of gratitude that is here in the room, and we also send out greetings to everyone who is online with us in Canada tonight. The fact that we are here at all in this room speaks to the tremendous innovation, determination, and perseverance that we've all seen demonstrated since the beginning of the pandemic. And amidst all of the hardship and the uncertainty of the last 20 months, the world has come together in extraordinary ways. I am in constant awe, and I think that you will share my sentiment when I say that I am in constant awe of the science that brought us the vaccines that allows us to be here tonight. But of course, the vaccines are not all about science. The business community has stepped forward at every turn to ensure that the raw materials, the distribution channels, the means of production are all there for vaccines to have been rolled out over the course of the pandemic. And that is to say nothing of the tremendous adaptation that has had to take place in order to ensure continued economic activity. The economic activity that ensures lives and livelihoods in the midst of a pandemic. And none of this would have happened without the highest levels of collaboration. Collaboration between people, collaboration between companies, and collaboration between nations. And that is the type of collaboration that I would like to talk about a little bit tonight. I'd like to share a few highlights, and we've heard some of these tonight already. I'd like to share a few highlights that I think illustrate the scope and the scale of the commercial relationship between Canada and India, some of the things that were there pre-pandemic, the context pre-pandemic, and some of the things that have continued to happen throughout COVID. And then finally, I'd like to share a few thoughts, just a few, on where the future lies for this relationship and where I think that this is all taking us. So let me start with a few broad strokes of perspective of where our trade relationship stands today. Prior to the disruption that was caused by COVID-19, the value of Canada's economic partnership with India was rapidly approaching $100 billion. The increase in trade has been reinforced by exponential growth in bilateral investment. And by our calculations, Canadian institutional investment alone into India has topped $63 billion. So a couple of examples. Brookfield is the largest foreign private investor in India. Fairfax is the majority owner of the Bangalore International Airport. CPP Investments has been actively involved in several recent high-profile IPOs in India. That includes Paytm, Nykaa, Policy Bazaar, and Zomato. And even during the pandemic, we've continued to see new investments announced. There are now more than 500 Canadian companies with a presence in India, and an additional 1,000 companies that are actively engaged in trade and investment. And on the other side, more than 100 Indian companies have invested in Canada, most notably IT companies. Since the onset of the pandemic, Canada and India have continued to engage closely. We supported each other in our two-way repatriation efforts, in the supply of key pharmaceuticals, sustaining global supply chains, and in potential partnerships for vaccine development. Travel restrictions and protocols that were induced by the pandemic have stressed the importance of technology like never before. And technology is an area where our relationship is particularly strong. As we meet here tonight, Canada is hosting a NASSCOM-led business delegation of more than 40 businesses to Canada. More than 40 Indian businesses to Canada, very specifically. And recently, our Trade Commissioner Service in India hosted a very successful Indo-Canadian Digital Supply Tech Conclave in Bengaluru. Last week, Canada was the Global Innovation Partner Country at the Bengaluru Tech Summit 2021, where the focus was on accelerating technology and innovation. And underpinning the success of this commercial engagement is a strong set of people-to-people ties. And as we've already heard, the more than 1.5 million Canadians of Indian origin are making significant contributions across all areas of our society, and most notably, I would say, in business. Likewise, the growing commercial exchanges are supported by a thriving bilateral relationship. A shared commitment on priorities and active political engagement are helping to expand the commercial and economic ties between Canada and India. Minister Goyal had a very productive meeting recently with Canada's Minister of International Trade, the Honourable Mary Ng, on the sidelines of the G20 ministerial meeting just last month. Sustained government-to-government collaboration can open up even greater potential for the relationship, and I'm delighted to see that commitment that's coming from both of our countries. But the commercial relationship, the aggregate numbers, the dollars, the goods, the services are all animated by dynamic activities coming from players in the market. And it's only natural that we should aim to be even more ambitious. In my view, there is virtually limitless potential, and that is why I believe that you will be instrumental in leading the way with your imagination and your innovation. And so tonight, I strongly encourage you to lean in, to be bold, to explore, to question, and to innovate as you consider new areas of partnership with your Canadian or your Indian partners. And as we seek new solutions to the next global challenges that will come to face us. I personally am looking forward to hearing more about your activities and your initiatives tonight and in the future. And I'd like to reiterate that the High Commission stands ready and committed to supporting ever greater ties and ambitions for the Canada-India relationship. This is our future. And once again, I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. I look forward to discussing more with you over the course of the evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy High Commissioner. Amazing to hear that you've been in India so many times, and we're so glad that you can come and grace us with your presence and share some of those exceptional insights tonight. Next, we have our keynote address, Mr. Hitendra Dave. He's the CEO and General Manager of HSBC India. He's the former head of global banking and markets at HSBC India and has almost 30 years of experience. 20 years of the 30 is with HSBC. He's a postgraduate in business administration and holds a degree in economics from Delhi University. I just learned this. Out of the 3 most profitable areas in the world, India is now one of them for the bank. He's highly respected for his understanding and views on macroeconomics, corporate developments, and financial markets. And he has been a member of various advisory committees. Please welcome, again, rousing welcome. This is our keynote, Mr. Dave.
Thank you, Victor. Do you want to switch this one off? Am I audible? Yeah. Okay. Deputy High Commissioner, Miss, I'm going to stay away from this now. Miss Amanda Strohan, Mr. John Terry of Air Canada, distinguished guests, my friends in the room and on the screens in Canada. I stand between you and the direction to the washroom that Victor gave to you, because I know that's the main thing. I was going to talk a lot about India and Canada and the statistics, so some of my thunder has been stolen. Some of the notes that I've been given actually are quite redundant now. The $63 billion number is, because I was going to really emphasize it as a big thing. I was going to mention that some of the big Canadian funds own more roads in India than any other Indian. I was going to mention that eventually some of the biggest landlords of the country will be, or some of the biggest interest receivers from India will be retirees and pensioners of Quebec and Montreal, etc., and not anybody in India. But the numbers have already been shared. So what I'm going to try and do is share my understanding of what's happening in India post-pandemic. I think very clearly when the pandemic hit, most of us really didn't know which way it's going to end up, right? I mean, as bankers, as policymakers, as government officials, as private businesses, and the reality is India's economy is rocking, okay, to the extent that the Deputy High Commissioner spoke about, lean in, grab the opportunity now, do things now. I have never felt this confident about Indian economy as I am doing these days, ever since, let's say, the financial crisis also. There are reasons for that, and which I thought in the 10-15 minutes that we have, we will sort of talk about those, and hopefully we'll leave a few minutes for some, if anybody's got any questions. So we went into the pandemic, I'm talking about India here, roughly 2.8, 2.7 trillion dollars of GDP, slowing economy. It was showing signs of slowdown. The pandemic happened. Clearly, first 2-3 months were a disaster, right? Nobody knew anything. Employment, factories were shut. People couldn't move around. Restaurants were shut down. Everything. We lived through it. We lived through it in every part of the world. It was more extreme in India given the nature of the lockdown that we experienced. And number of economists ran to sort of minus 10% GDP, minus 12% GDP, etc. And here we are today, where hopefully worst of the pandemic is behind us, and that's where I thought I'll share my thinking. I think the economy is bouncing back faster than we have ever seen in the last 12, 13 years or so, and there are reasons which I want to share with you. So first and foremost is that the government of India till the pandemic was fiscally quite conservative. Okay, and when the fisc is conservative, then other people have to spend, right? I mean, the economy works on people spending money. So we had a situation where the fisc was conservative. Corporate India, for those of you who are familiar with the Indian corporate landscape, in any case had been conservative because of their over-indebtedness going into the pandemic, right? Most large Indian companies were under pressure from their boards for having financed all their growth using debt, and the debt was beginning to bite, and you had news stories of large companies being acquired under the new insolvency mechanism, etc. Most boards were telling their companies to hold on to the cash, not do any fresh capex. In fact, announced capex also people were slowing down to preserve cash. You had a situation where banks and what we call in India NBFCs or finance companies were having serious question marks about their quality and the quantity of capital they had. So you had government conservative, corporates not wanting to spend, and you had banks not having the capital to lend. Households in India were carrying to the extent that they could. What's, I think, triggered a lot of changes in the last 18 months, I'll start one by one. I think households everywhere in the world have experienced, though the well-off households. Okay, there is a section of the economy which is unfortunately going to be really, really bad, and that's where sovereigns and the states, etc., will have to play out. But I'm talking purely economics here and not really getting into the social side of it. That you have a situation where households have not spent money and their incomes haven't come down. In different parts of the world, like in US and UK and maybe even in Canada, the sovereign directly printed checks and sent it to the households, and they didn't have anywhere to spend. So therefore, if you look at even US households, they've used this money to repay debt. So household balance sheet is better. Same thing has happened in India. To the point that John made about airline tickets are full, they're full everywhere now. Okay, because there is revenge flying, there is revenge shopping, there is revenge. You talk to the Taj people, right? It's the business hotels where rooms are available. But you try and book something in the fancy locations, Jaipur, Udaipur, etc. No rooms are available. So this is happening everywhere, that households are using that pent-up or that built-up income to do pent-up spending. But there is also appears to be a socio-psychological issue that people have realized what's the purpose of life type of thing. Right? I mean, a lot of us have had more than enough time at home. At some stage, the second honeymoon lasted only so long. People said, enough of it now. So I think the households, better balance sheet, social, economic change. Corporations, right, biggest drivers of economic growth in most economies, are experiencing operating cash flows which are tremendous. In India itself, the 20-30 large business groups have repaid almost 200,000 crore rupees, which is close to $30 billion. I work for a bank, I try to lend money every day. When corporates repaying $30 billion, it's very, very difficult to originate new assets. So I am now finding those corporates much more worthy, but much more important, their boards now are not worried about existential issues. And they are also experiencing the surge in consumer demand, right? They are seeing surge in demand, their balance sheets are much better, and therefore we are getting incoming calls now on capex, expansion, investment, etc. So that's households, corporations, banks. Okay. When we went into the pandemic, all of us, not just HSBC, I see some other friends from the banking industry here, and I'm sure there are banker colleagues on the screen there. All of us took significant amount of proactive provisioning or buffers for our capital, expecting credit losses. And the realized credit losses are turning out to be way, way lower. Especially in India, they're turning out to be almost a fifth of what any of us thought. So banks had provisioned for the losses. And They have raised incredible amount of capital in India. Almost every bank in the country has raised capital. So you have provisioned balance sheets, extra capital, corporate health improving, household health improving. This is a very good combination typically for credit-fueled economic recovery. And finally, the fourth element, which nobody thought would happen but is happening, is the sovereign. When the pandemic happened, sovereign went into a spending overdrive. I mentioned about the fact that the fisc was conservative in India. Pandemic obviously forced everyone. You couldn't sit on economic philosophies at that time. Lots of money has been pumped out. Basically, the next 3-4 years of extra borrowings has been pumped into the last 12 months or so. And now the economic consumption boom, investment boom, capex boom is resulting in government revenues on any count, direct taxes, what in India we call indirect goods and services tax, is 30 to 40% higher than what it was in 2019, like for like. I mean, all of us ignore 2020 for all practical purposes. So even the government of India is experiencing that they have the money and therefore the bottom of the pyramid, they have the wherewithal to be able to help out without resorting to extra borrowing. So this is the combination that I see. We are beginning to see it in simple things like mortgages. The number of mortgages for more than, let's say, $1 million that I am clearing every week is 5x of 2019. Okay, those of you who stay in Mumbai, South Mumbai, etc., where property just wasn't moving at all, things are moving. So that's, I think, just a nutshell of the very short term. Broader India structural story, again, this might be more relevant to some of you who are not from India and those of you who are on the screen. The biggest driver of India's growth is always the young population. And on that, I have to say it's a bit depressing. Wherever you go to a pub or a mall or a restaurant, you're always the eldest guy in that room. You're not used to that, right? You don't think of yourself that old, right? But that is what is driving India's economic growth, and that is fundamental to why India is an attractive investment destination, right? It's a consumer story. It's in any economy, the young people earn more, they save less, they consume more, etc. I think that part is there, and little examples of how this, what I spoke in the first part about IT services companies, okay, today are experiencing tremendous amount of staff shortage. They've had to up compensations by between 30 to 50%. Okay, now that is, but they are able to pay 30 to 50% more because the world is also consumer, they're a business they're getting, but that 30 to 50% at the scale at which the industry hires, which is about 500,000 people a year, is resulting in, it's a virtuous cycle. Second, I think what I would like to highlight again to people who are not so familiar with India is India's payment landscape. Payment infrastructure of India is, without any doubt, the best in the world. Okay, you can, as long as you have a mobile, your life is sorted. Okay, if your mobile is stolen, your life is gone. Not in more ways than one, because your money is gone, your wallet is gone. Now, eventually I work for a bank and I'm also thinking, why am I spending so much money on credit cards, on investing in credit cards? Because everything seems to be available here, including instantaneous credit. I'm reviewing an application from a company which wants to lend to people who buy on Swiggy. The ticket size is 200 rupees to 300 rupees. That's $3 to $4. But that's because the payment infrastructure is so good that the cost of me processing the credit and remitting the money to him, to the customer, is less than 1 cent, 1 US cent, or whatever number of Canadian cents, right? So I think that's the other thing for people to carry back, that you have banks in good shape, payment infrastructure in great shape, and very, very under-leveraged household sector. Less than 10% of Indian households, less than 10% of Indian households have any form of debt. Any form of debt. Please compare that to any other country. And economies depend on credit, right? I mean, if we bought a house based on savings, most of us wouldn't be owning a house at all. So that's, I thought I'll highlight. But maybe before I pause and if there are any questions, I'm happy to take those. Just some numbers so that you can take it sort of. So we were $2.8 trillion heading into the pandemic, and the plan was to hit $5 trillion by 2025 or so. Looks like you have to add 1 to 2 years to everything now, because we had 1 year of -10. This year's GDP growth, I think the consensus number by people much more knowledgeable than me is between 8.5 to 9.5. My guess is we are going double digit. I think the economy is hot right now. Okay? It's really happening. It's rocking right now. India's FX reserves are, official reserve number is $650 billion. Real reserve number is $700 billion. It's important to note that because that's like almost 2 years, 2 years now, one and a half years of imports, right? So that's a good measure. So on FX reserves, one more thing I would like to share with people is that 3 years back, India's FX reserves were $380 billion. Today, like I'm saying, they're at 680, 690. What would have happened to the currency if the Reserve Bank had not bought these $300 billion? It's a counterfactual. Nobody knows. Nobody knows what could it have been 40 rupees to a dollar? I don't know. It's very much on the cards. Could have been 50, could have been 60, etc. So on the external sector, you have a lot of reserves. Internally, the government revenues are good. Exports are booming, as are imports. Exports, we are likely to hit $400 billion this year. We were at $300 billion just 3 years back or so. So good. I think overall, my sense is between the household, consumer, corporate, government balance sheet, bank balance sheets, and the defenses built by the authorities, and the general what's happened in the West in terms of the boom in demand, I think we're in for a good time. This is the Canada-India Business Forum. If my chat can encourage people to look at India much more positively, I hope I have done some justice to the invitation that's been made to me. But happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. Questions from the audience? Sure, go ahead.
Hi, thank you again for your interesting talk. This is Sanjeev from Scotiabank. Wanted to check from you in this scenario which you painted, what are the two biggest risks that you foresee? Especially on the inflation side, India is a high inflation country and global inflation is also inching up. How do you see these numbers being tempered by the global inflation? And secondly, thank you. And secondly, we have recently seen some of the big reforms taken by the union government being rolled back under political pressures. How do you see these things impacting the overall economic landscape and global investors when they invest in India? Thank you.
No, I think it's fair to also caution or balance the obvious optimism that I have about the economy or the country with risks. Inflation, I think everyone's talking about it a lot. Financial Times writes about it a lot. All the economists are also talking about it a lot. But I think what we are experiencing right now, my sense is all that money which got pumped out, right? And that's getting spent now. Production capacities cannot come up at the same speed, right? You can spend $2,000 much faster than 2,000 into a million people cannot be created. If they are consuming chocolates, let's say, you cannot increase chocolate capacity so quickly. So I think there is a time lag effect happening there. I think that's how policymakers also see it. That's why, despite clearly inflation at 4 to 5% in US and policy rates still being at 0 and Fed still saying will be calibrated and careful. That's one part that I think, and the reason policymakers I think are being careful is they're at the lower bound. What if you raise rates like EU did immediately after the financial crisis, right? That's what happened. Exactly this kind of discussions are happening. When you pump in a lot of money, naturally there will be inflation. They raised rates immediately, and then they went back once again. And now they've had to struggle with this minus 50 basis points rate because it's unnatural, right? I can tell you that first time when we were trying to book a deal with the negative interest rate, our system just didn't accept it. It just wasn't we weren't expecting it to be, right? So I think inflation is a concern, but the fact that so many people are talking about it and the fact that so many commentators are talking about it, that you're not going to get a massive misread there. And the second thing is, let's say interest rates go up in US, because that's what's pumping liquidity. You go from 0 to what? 1%, 1.5%, 2%. I mean, you think of it in the context of the longer history and the rate of return on equity, etc. Treasury yield will go from 1.5% to let's say 3%. It does not impact material borrowing behavior or the cost of capital is my sense. On the other question on reforms, I think these are democracies at display. I think the world understands that ultimately nothing can be done by any country unless there is popular support. Farmers in particular are always they're a special category of people. They give us food, right? So you at some stage you have to just accept that you might think it's right, but if they don't think it's right, you accept that. But I would highlight and again bring to the notice of people in the audience as well as here that material reforms have taken place. India's corporate tax rates now are one of the lowest in the world, right? And that's why you are backing up those lower tax rates also with specific outcome or output based incentive, what is the production linked incentive. I mean, it's a matter of time India becomes the manufacturer of the largest solar modules or chips or semiconductors, etc. because of geopolitical issues plus the very large taxes. Because India's corporate tax rate right now is very, very attractive compared to anywhere else in the world. So yes, if you're a very pro-reform kind of a person, you can say it's a rollback. But I think the world sees through these things. The capital, you work for a bank, I work for a bank. Would I see India even an iota lower because of this? I don't think so. You can just come here. You can just come here.
Thank you, Hitendra. My name is Rontu Basu from Quest Partners. So just to follow up on Sanjeev's question, so you painted a very good picture of the economy. So my question is India's economic recovery a glass half full? Because a lot of people, corporates have done well, the stock markets have done well, there's a wealth effect. But a lot of India is not doing well, especially the SMEs. And you spoke about mortgage back loans going up. A lot of it is in the non-priority sector, so the rich are buying, not so much the 25, 35 lakhs. So just like your views on that. So how do you see that economic recovery panning out going forward?
No, I think it cannot be denied that this is a very unequal recovery. I'm looking at the aggregate recovery here, but you can have losers in a winning environment and you can have winners in a losing environment. I think the good part is that the sovereign is in a good shape. Who helps the poor? Sovereign. Nobody else helps the poor, right? I mean, they whether it is by way of free food grains as India is choosing to do, or whether it is by way of additional employment that we have under there's a particular scheme called Mahatma Gandhi National Employment Guarantee Scheme. The amount funding for that is 50% higher. They can take it 100% higher if at this level of tax revenues. We were earning about 100,000 crores, which is about $15 billion a month 2 years back. Now we are at 30% higher than that. And looks like it will go another higher from whatever based on my discussion. So if the sovereign is wealthy, you can take care of the unequal recovery. I completely agree with you, it's an unequal recovery. But just purely economically, that's why I said, I don't want to get into the social side of it. Obviously, all of us want to make sure that the poor are benefited, but poor will only benefit if the sovereign is slightly better. Otherwise, it will never. That's why the poorest person in the context of this room, Canada, is better than the poorest person in India simply because the Canada sovereign or the Canada provinces are in a much better shape. That's just it, right? So I think to the other point you made on stock market, etc. I just want to highlight again for those of you who are on the screen and maybe not so much on the ground. One of the greatest thing that's happening in India right now is this whole startup ecosystem. It is just fantastic. Okay, it is fantastic not only because companies are listing and raising equity. It is fantastic because young men and women are allowed to experiment, they're allowed to fail, and they again try, which is a very Western thing, it's a very Silicon Valley thing. It wasn't an Indian thing. We never got it wrong from school, right? 10th, 12th, college, you just could never, people, there is what is that year called, that year you take between college and work, gap year, right? That's not an Indian thing at all. You've done. You join the workforce the very next day, right? The gap year is a very foreign thing. But now things are changing. A friend, my niece is taking a gap year. We are all shocked, but she is taking a gap year. So this startup thing, I think is great because it's allowing people to experiment and fail and learn and do new things. Secondly, every time they list, right? Because they're sharing stocks, that's the only way they attract people, right? They can't pay salaries. So every time they list, some 500 people out of the 5,000 become millionaires, and they're all in their 20s and 30s. And of those 500, 50 quit, and they start on their own, and 5 of them will again become. So it's democratizing wealth creation. They are better governance companies, and they are ideas based, right? They're innovation based. They're not, I have a license which you didn't have, and therefore you have to come to me. So I think this is part of the wider India excitement story. To me. Yes, sir.
My name is Sandeep. I represent Export Development Canada. Simplistically put, we are the Exim Bank of. So when I speak about this number, this is music to the Canadian financial sponsors who are very eager to pick up nice assets in the market. One doubt always remains in the mind that will this forever remain on paper, or will this fructify at some point of time? You work with policymakers, you are close to the pulse of the economy. My question to you is that what is the message that you'd like to give to Canadian financial sponsors? That will this be a reality over the next 3 years, or there will be struggles to monetize this asset program and monetization program that the government had announced?
I think I already mentioned, right? The financial sponsors already own more of India than me as a participant in our provident fund. So I think if there's this investor community that read India bang on, it's the Canadian fund. Right? They just got it. CDPIB, CDPQ, OMERS, OTPP, etc. They came in, I think between 5 to 10 years back, and after that haven't taken a backward step, and also largely chosen to back the right people. So India is like that, right? You love it or you don't love it, depending on who you partnered. I think so. The filtering process, the due diligence. I can only say hats off. I just wish Indian investors had also done so, because my pension fund manager had also done so. It would have been nice to receive those double-digit coupons that you guys are earning back in your provinces. I think on the asset monetization program, my own sense is the most difficult ones to bite. Or let's say things like Air India, emotional attachment, bureaucracy is very close to Air India, all kinds of things, right? So the fact that they have sold that would suggest that there is political will now, and there is no political opposition now, both things. So there is will on the side of the government. That it doesn't seem to be a politically hot subject at all. It's not like farm laws what we spoke about. I think whether $81 billion happens or not, time will tell. But it is almost the case that anything that is cash flow generating, my guess is foreign capital, especially Canadian capital, largely is looking for cash flow generating projects. They will take the risk of traffic coming up and down, but the road has to be built, as opposed to building the road and living with all the project risk issues. So I think if you look at grids, if you look at railways, I think these are all cash flow generating. These are all 20, 30 year kind of projects. There is more than enough long-term capital available in the very large pension markets like of Canada, Australia, other countries as well. So I think there is political appetite. It's just a question of commercially getting it right. Which when you're a seller, the price always seems too low, and when you're a buyer, the price always seems too high. The good thing for global investors is the government of India does need the money. The government of India does need the money. So there is no choice but to get it. We are selling well-run refineries, right? There's no reason to sell them. They're throwing up enough cash, but it's just that we need the money upfront.
Thank you.
May we have the last question, please, if that's possible? Good evening, Mr. Dave. Thank you for that wonderful insight of the economy. Very positive indeed. And my name is Rohan Muktali, and I represent COPLServe India along with my partners here. We facilitate entry of foreign companies in India. You, as he said, on the painting the picture of the economy, one of the things we deal with, and bank being an important element in the ecosystem of entry of foreign companies in India. All the positive sentiment and the growth which you've just mentioned, how would, what's your take on the ease of doing business in India angle? Where at the end of the day, you're a forum where we look at that as a important thing. Just a quick take, I will be appreciated. Thank you.
No, I think two things here. Learning from John, I think if you are facilitating entry of foreign companies into the country, my colleagues are sitting around your table only, so please do get in touch with them as well. We can work together very well to make sure that
we already are.
See, I think this whole ease of doing business term we have all learned in the last 5-6 years. Let's face it, we weren't tracking it earlier. Some of it is optics, some of it is real. But is India an easier place than what it was, say, 5 or 6 or 10 years back? Yes. Is it where we should be? No. Are there things happening which are useful? This production-linked incentive scheme, which is very clear, right? Like, name the sector. All you have to say is what is your turnover last year? What will be your it's removing the typical Indian complexity. You look at tax rates, right? Retrospective taxation. When you say ease of doing business in India, that one case created an image that India is always going to work. You could leave India, but India will never leave you type of thing. So I think the fact that they have actually killed that bill, killed that act, the fact that your overall tax rates have been brought down, the fact that now, I mean, Deputy High Commissioner mentioned Minister Goyal, we actually now are going into just as a bank, we provide you a relationship manager. The government of India now is providing you a relationship manager, right? So that person's job is only to navigate you through both central level and state level. Yeah. So single window. So these are all suggestions we've been making for years. For years, I mean, I think at least 20 years back I mentioned that just do what corporates do, or just do what Taj does, right? If I want to book a room in this hotel, I know whom to call. Life is so much more simpler. So I think it is never going to be, we are far from being, let's say, a Singapore or a Hong Kong, but we are much better than where we were. And as more and more international capital comes in, it comes with its own norms. So therefore, whether you want to do it or not, capital will not come. You want to sell $81 billion of assets, you want to attract capital into your startups, you want to have listing, etc. I think capital will create its own thing. So, but I have to also add that it's actually not as complicated as people think. I do want to tell that to everybody here that.
And we agree with that.
I think it's some of the people who have to say it's complicated so that they have a reason to exist who make it more complicated than it is, or make it sound like more complicated. That's my sense. HSBC has been here for 160 years. Absolutely no problem.
That's really good take. Thank you, Hitendra.
Please thank Mr. Goyal. It's one thing to have prepared notes, it's another thing when questions come, and your insights are quite remarkable. Obviously, you've been around this for a long time, but off the cuff, that's quite exceptional. Every time I come to India, I'm humbled by how much things change. And those of you that are not here, we're here to welcome you back because India is doing some amazing things. And when you look at the rest of the world, this is the largest growth market in the world. You mentioned, of course, this next year, but in the years ahead. And many of our Canadian companies, many of our members are taking advantage of that, and we need to get many, many more, as well as many of our provinces. I just want to, again, thank you all for coming. I want to give a special thank you to Andrew Smith from the High Commission. He's a big champion of India, and in terms of the connection between the government of Canada and India. Of course, it's lovely to be in the Taj Hotel and the wonderful staff, so thank you guys for all that you've done. And I can't say this enough, thank you to our generous partners. Thank you at Air Canada to John and to Arun. Where's Arun? There you are. Thank you. Thank you, Deputy High Commissioner Strohan and all the folks here from Global Affairs. Thank you, Dave and your team, and Raghav, there he is, from HSBC. We also want to thank Victor Lee and the Government of Saskatchewan as a gold partner. And thank you, EDC, and thank you, Government of Ontario. I want to thank my board of directors who've been been very gracious in keeping me employed. I started this job in the middle of the pandemic, and this is the first time I've actually come into market since. And so it's been really fortunate to be able to do things virtually, but so impactful to get to see people in person. So thank you, and again, those of you that are watching, we look forward to welcoming you to an in-person event in 2022. A couple things that are going on. We're going to be bringing our new advisory council together next month. They're CEOs, business leaders from across Canada, and that's starting the first meetings next month. We're doing a small private executive roundtable with the Indian Commerce Minister, Minister Goyal, next month. Our BC Partnership Summit will be in February in Vancouver, and then we'll be doing our next event in India on March 7th in Bengaluru. And we're hoping to have a delegation of women executives coming specific, and so we focused on women in leadership as well as technology. Our largest Canadian event is our Invest India conference, and that will be in the first half of 2022 in Toronto. We're just waiting to see where all the pandemic restrictions land, and we'll lock in a date. Thank you to our members and our stakeholders for all that you do in terms of moving this relationship forward. And for every one of you that are here, I want to single one of our staff team that's made this night possible, and that is faith. Please stand and be recognized. So for those of us that are here, we now get to enjoy some amazing food and drink, and we are going to have a feast. And for those of you who are out there virtually, we wish you were here. Good night from Mumbai, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you very much. Logistically, Faith will come around to the tables to let you know when you're ready to go to the buffet. And again, thank you again so much for coming. Please eat well. Please feel free to drink well. Make sure you get a ride safely home. And I look forward to getting to connect with each and every one of you here tonight. This means a lot to us to have each and every one of you. So thank you.